We're back. It is the embargo date of Titleist GT1, the addition to the GT line of drivers, and we're going to tell you about it. But first, we've got plenty of testing to do. So, Mark, let's talk about the GT line.
Yeah, well, the whole GT line, there's obviously 4 different drivers. Go from GT4, which is really a tour head, a little bit smaller in size and much more lower spin and stuff, all the way up to the 1, which they just came out with, which is really designed for maximum distance and maximum speed, right?
Yeah.
So, ultra light, a little more upright, a little more draw biased, but you know, it's a good line because it's a good progression through the whole bunch.
Yeah, so we've got kind of a lot of data for you in this session. We tested the GT4 at 115 miles an hour, all the zeros, the GT3 and 2 at 95 miles an hour, all the zeros, and the brand new GT1 at 75 miles an hour, the force limited player, that's what it's aimed at.
Yep.
So that's the intention. You're going to get that data there, but we're also going to do a really cool test, which we want you to hang around for. We're going to hit every single driver out of the center at 95 miles an hour, 0, 0, 0, so you can see spin, launch, carry changes. We're going to do it live. We don't know the results.
No, we don't.
So let's hope it goes well. Let's jump into the GT4 first. We're going to get Glenn to hit the GT4 9 0, 0 test as we're running over the data. So all the Titleist line carries the same lie angle, barring the GT1.
Right.
58.5 degrees.
Yeah, it's only a half degree more upright. I mean, it's a little more, obviously, it's helping to be a little more draw bias, but not a big difference.
And so they're basically saying this player might want a little more draw out of it.
Absolutely.
CG location, we've got another graphic to show you on this, is at 0.581 inches back from the shaft in a GT4 model, which is what Glenn's going to hit right now. And then basically we watch a pure stagger. It starts to get further back in the 3, further back in the 2, and then further back even more in the 1.
And that's one of the things we already start talking about a bit more later on is, you know, where that CG location is. I know Tom Mace, who does all this testing for us, so he likes deep CGs, but other guys like the opposite. You know, the deeper the CG, the harder it is to square the face up. Obviously, it helps MOI and a few other things, but it makes it harder to rotate the head close.
Yeah.
So there's a trade-off, like everything in golf. And so they've got to pretty much limit everything, right? So you can go from pretty far back to, you know, pretty far forward.
And everything we've done here is neutral weight. So especially in the 2, where we've got this rear weight that you can change the amount of. The 3, the weight's right up front. Right. The 4, you can flip the weights around. So there actually is a lot of movement.
And the 4, as you flip the weights, I mean, it jumps a category. It's like between the 2 and the 3. It doesn't just get a little closer to the 3. It actually jumps at the 3. Yeah. So big difference.
I'd say the 4 is the most difference. 430 cc's with that really forward CG with 6927 MOI. So we know that 10K is the top, right? Right. So it gives people an idea. This is a long way down in the MOI scale.
This is really for the tour player that's, you know, a ball striker that wants to be able to work the ball. Hits it pretty quick, keep it pretty relatively low. Definitely drop spin. As you move that CG forward, you drop spin quite a bit. Yeah. But for the right player, I mean, they're all designed for different players.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's do this. So GT4 from the center at 95 miles an hour. This is not who it's designed for.
No, we tested as 115 in our actual testing. Yeah. But just to see apples to apples and see the difference. And
so we'll do a comparison of this data afterwards.
Yeah, that'll be kind of interesting.
So I'd expect to see this thing. Oh, the one thing to note, they're all 10 degrees. So we've got a fair start point here. Let's see. So a little right of the center line.
Yeah, and this is the 4, right? Yep. So you would expect this to be a little fade bias to anything. Yep.
And we got 10.7 degrees of launch, 2,200 RPMs.
That's pretty low.
And where was the bias? Their spin axis, 2.2 degrees to the right. So it is just a tiny little bit fade bias, 2,200 RPMs, 11 degrees.
So relatively low spin. Yeah. Right. And a little bit right biased. Okay. It's kind of what you expect. And that's kind of what that player wants. Right. Think.
Bringing up the chart for the GT4, when we put 115 behind it, which is absolutely who this driver is aimed at, we're seeing 165 miles an hour, 9.8 degrees launch. So that's a good indication that the CG is quite far forward. Right. The head's not tilting back and launching. It's really holding it.
It's launching a little bit lower than the stated loft on it, right?
Yeah, well, 9.
On here, it's 9. It's close. At that speed, though, that's a fair amount of speed, too. So.
Barely tilting back at all. 2,100, this thing is a low spinner. Yeah. And it's got a tiny amount of draw bias on it there at in that center location at that higher speed. Carried 290 yards, which is what we all want, right?
Right, yeah.
We did also test this in the toe and the heel. This has got notable, we can, you know, the data's on the screen for you, but notable in the toe. Pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, it's really good in the toe. Surprising. And, you know, 3/4 inch off center is pretty much on a small head like this. Right? I mean, you're moving it quite a bit.
Also, we're looking at the heel. The heel didn't even drop off 10%. You know, we lost 21 yards out of 290. It's less than 10% drop off.
Right, and that's all relative too. When you look at these charts and stuff too, you realize that, you know, obviously when you mishit it off center, at 115 miles an hour, you know, 20-yard drop is pretty good.
Yeah.
If you're swinging at 75 miles an hour, 20-yard drop is a lot.
Pretty bad.
So yeah, exactly. So it's relative to how much speed you got. So it's a percentage of the distance you're losing.
And the heel shot finished right on target line, so that's pretty good.
Pretty impressive there. Yeah, straight. And you know, only 20 yards shorter, which, you know, that kind of speed, that's not bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's a small head too, like I said.
Okay, we're going to take a little break. We're going to cut it, and Glenn's going to snap in the GT3 head, and we're going to do the same test again.
All right.
Okay, so we've got the GT3. We're going to do the 95 mile an hour test in the center in the background while we talk about the 95 mile an hour test that we did on the 10 degree model, you know, before. So we're going to get the same kind of data. 138 ball speed, 10 launch. So we did see a little more launch than what we just saw out of the, well, actually the GT4 just launched at 10.7 in that test. So it's kind of interesting when you see the CG change. Spin rate 1900 on average. So this is actually a really low spin head.
Yeah, it is. This is a great head, actually. I played the GT3 and the
TSR3.
TSR3.
Yeah.
Good driver all around. Looks good, feels good.
Yeah. And this is where the carry kind of isn't relative. When this head is actually designed for higher speed than this, probably should have put this through the 115 test.
Yeah.
We start to see the ball knuckle. So the carry dropped off there down to 221 because this is indicating that if you're not putting in more than 95 mile an hour or you're not hitting up on the ball enough, you're not going to get the most.
Yeah, I get away with this model because I hit up like 5 degrees.
Right.
And I had a lot of loft. So I launched it at 16 or so, even with a 9-degree head. So it's not a problem for me. But for a lot of people, yeah, if you're not hitting high enough, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, so this really is for someone hitting up on it, trying to knock spin down. If you're in that lower speed, if you're in that higher speed, it's probably just doing the right kind of job for you anyway. Got that weight track right up the front, which is kind of moving CG less than if you had it way right at the back. Right. It's really not a forgiving or designed to be a forgiving driver. It's a tour player driver.
Right.
And you can see that in the heel and the toe miss. The good news is the heel and toe miss kind of drop off in that same space down the bottom there.
Yep.
The graph is scaled, so it kind of looks worse than it is, but you're only in 2-yard increments as you're kind of stepping up that scale. And we're kind of seeing heel and toe right in the same grouping. So that's good for a good player to know that heel and toe just same spot.
Yeah, you lose a little bit of distance, but they're going straight still.
Right, yeah. So we lost 9 yards with the toe, 8 yards with the heel, and the centre shots are left of centre. So if anything, again, this head's maybe a little bit draw biased.
Yeah, not a lot, but a tiny bit.
Yeah, a couple yards.
That's probably why I liked it so much.
Right, yeah, it helps you already. All right, Glenn, let's see this 95 mile an hour 0-0 on camera. So this is going to be good to see an apples to apples comparison. I don't know if this has ever been done before, where we hit all 4 models at the same speed, the same angle of attack, same face angle, and okay, really close to each other on the graph at least. So we've got 9.8 degrees of launch. So it does actually launch a little lower in this one-off test than the GT4. 2200, identical amount of spin. So that's a good idea if you want to flick between the heads and you're looking for the same spin. You could pick a 3 or 4, kind of get the same results there. It's exactly the same spin axis and about 5 yards less because the ball speed was down. No, ball speed was identical. Why did we get 5 yards?
A little bit lower launching.
Right, that's it.
Just a tiny bit.
Lower launching. Okay, well, let's snap in the GT2 and see where that lies. I think this is going to be the interesting one.
Yeah.
This is the biggest change in that kind of model now.
Yep, it definitely changes quite a bit. It's got a bigger footprint for sure. It's not a smaller head.
Yep.
So yeah, I think we'll see this one being quite a bit different.
Yep. Into the GT2. This is the test that we did run back of house because we really do think this is kind of who it's aimed at, right?
Yeah, 95 miles an hour. I mean, obviously you can be a tour player and 120 and play as a driver as well. But,
which they do actually on tour.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
But you know, 95 miles an hour is a fair test for this club.
Yeah.
You're going to see most of the players in that range.
And when you hear Titleist talk about it, they're using it kind of like what we're trying to explain here is for launch characteristic. Basically, they're picking a player who might want to work it a certain way and launch it a certain way, and then just trying to blend the driver in to help them the best possible. This is the first time when you start to see the footprint, other than I guess 4 to 3, because the 4 is the smaller CC.
Right.
But the shape of the 2 is a bit more noticeable. It is a wider kind of style.
Yeah, it's a bigger footprint basically. Yeah. But you know, same CCs obviously as the 3, but it's squashed down a little bit, so wider, so higher MOI obviously.
And that's what we're looking for, right? So the
and
MOI,
a little lower CG as well. So.
We're in the 6,000s for the 4, and now we're nearly, 8,000 MOI basically for the 2. So it's a jump up the scale, and the CG depth for that falls backwards towards the trailing edge of the golf clubs. Glenn, let's test this one while we're going, and we'll talk about it. 138 ball speed, 9.5 launch, 2400, 2375, 220. So we kind of know where we're at in terms of...
Touch more spin, touch more launch, just kind of go up the scale. Right?
Yep, okay. Pretty straight, just tucking down the left again. Everything kind of has had that tiny bit of tilt axis. This one a little more so than the 4 and the 3, another 2 degrees.
And kind of like you expect too on the spin rates, a couple hundred RPMs higher.
Yeah,
It is. Touch more launch.
So we did get 2454 there, so that's the first little jump in spin that we've seen. If you need a bit more spin, GT2. Launch angles back in that 10.7 range, so it is a higher launch.
A little higher launch, yeah.
Great ball speed, so no change in ball speed from all 3 models out of the centre,
no,
which
you
is
kind of
great.
see that, right? Yeah, that's what you expect to see.
And then the carry there, 229. So obviously these ballistics are more like what the 95 mile an hour test needs to get the maximum carry out of it. So that's really done what it says on the tin. A couple of hundred RPMs more than the 3. And if we look back at the chart that we created, much more forgiving in terms of distance out of the toe.
And a little more draw bias too.
A little more draw bias.
Which makes sense.
Right. I mean, that's, again, we kind of talked about this in other robot tests. Like, this is what we're aiming at. Why are you buying this over the 3? Well, I hit it in the toe more. Okay, we're going to get more bang for your buck out of the toe. The heel kind of finishes on center, if not left of center still. So it's still kind of driving you to that left side rather than any sort of fade bias. That's really, really good. And really not much drop off. So.
And you obviously got some weights in some of them. I mean, the reason I like the 3 is I can move the weight to the heel and actually help draw a little bit. So there's some other things you can do as well. And then you can make it more upright as well. I mean, there's some other options.
Oh yeah, with the hosel. Again, we've done everything in neutral. There's so much fitting opportunity with the hosel here too. Moving on to the last one, the one that's just been released, and I guess that's why you're here, GT1. Same technology. They brought the thermoform crown in, so they've got that lightweight metallic sounding material. They've got, it's a lighter weight product. It doesn't show up in the robot test because we kind of negate that, but with controlling the club head speed, so you're not going to see any gain. But we also see here this weight in the back. You can turn this into a standard build by putting a plus 6 gram weight in. So it must be about 6 grams lighter than the average of the others.
Yeah, it's about 5 grams difference. Yeah, but it's designed to be a little longer shaft, lighter weight shaft, lighter swing weight even, for people that just don't get a lot of speed. So much of trying to make everything light so you can spin faster.
Yeah. So the actual test we did on this was the 75 miles an hour test, because that's totally who it's aimed at. Your force limited golfer, seniors, some ladies, juniors. So this has got a huge market. So this is the one to watch out for.
Tyler's come a long way in the last couple of years too. I mean, since the ISI, came out a couple of years ago, they've got a lot of people playing these drivers, and not just better players and professionals and club pros and stuff. I mean, this fits a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see this one on tour, but we're probably going to see this a lot of your bags. So stay tuned. GT1. So we've got the furthest back CG depth than out of all the models. And we've got an MOI that's lower than GT2. Why is that?
I think they're trying to keep the MOI down a little bit so they can get the face close, right? So these, distance challenge people, whatever, the lower club head speed, which is kind of designed for, lighter weight head. If you make the MOI really high, it's hard for people to get the face close.
Yeah, and weight and MOI come together, right?
Right, absolutely.
So dropping that 6 grams out of the back of it predominantly is just dropped off the MOI.
And you've lost weight in general, right? So it's a 6 gram lighter head. That in itself is going to drop
Just
the
hurts
MOI. Yeah, if you do nothing else.
Right. So this is really aimed at people who struggle with club speed. Right? This is trying to give you a club speed back. It's an aerodynamic shape. It's got the lightweight package, and it's trying to help you get the ball in the air. So everything about this is really more about more launch, more spin.
A little higher, a little more draw biased. All the things that most of those guys need. Everyone's searching for as much distance as you can get. A little bit higher is good because they don't hit it hard enough. Obviously, we did the test at 75 miles an hour. A little more draw bias is a good thing too. Turn it over, you get it to roll further as well. So that's all what it is. And what you're not seeing in the robot is the robot's fixed and it can swing at 140 miles an hour if it wants to. So it's not going to swing a lighter club much faster than a heavier club. Like a person would. People that have limited amounts of strength and stuff, they're going to swing it faster. And swinging it faster is what you really get the distance, right? So it's half mass times velocity squared. So speed is really important. You can give up a little mass if you can gain some speed. It's definitely going to give you more distance overall. So that's part of the deal.
So Glenn, let's hit this at 95 miles an hour. Bear in mind, this is not the test we did. As he's hitting it, Mark and I are going to run over the 75 mile an hour test because that is who it's aimed at. And we tested the 75 mile an hour at 12 degrees.
Yeah. And we're kind of seeing what we'd think. I mean, it's super straight.
Right.
You
And
know,
the grouping's tight.
The grouping's tight
Because
well, when you drop down the speed, all the distances come back. So the clubs that are offline, you know, like I said, I don't lose as many balls as I used to because I don't get to the woods, right?
And that's why the guy just whips you on the golf course when he hits his slower speed because he's not losing it in the woods as
No,
much.
he never loses it, right? So you do see that as you go down the club head speed, you're going to see tighter groupings. But these are really tight, you know,
Really
individual
tight.
groupings, right? Just 4 yards of loss off the toe, which is not bad at all.
Yeah.
A little bit right and a little bit left on the heel, dropped only 10 yards.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about the other ones, which are 95 miles an hour, we're seeing like 15 average of most of the drivers.
Yeah.
So as you drop the speed, you're going to see less of a drop off. So.
Okay, so we've got no baseline for 95 miles an hour. We've got some expectation, we've got some theory, thanks to Tom Mace.
Right.
Let's see what it does at 95, Glenn.
Kind of what you expect.
12 degrees of launch, 12.2. So we've gone a degree higher, bearing in mind the same loft, the same speed, the same impact location, same path, same face. Nothing's changed. This head launches higher than any other head in the line.
Which people at lower club speed need that.
Yeah. And now we're talking 700 RPMs from the GT2 and, and 900 RPMs from the GT4 plus.
That's a little more.
That's a lot.
And, you know, most of the drivers these days, and what everyone's been talking about for years is, you know, low launch, low spin, or high launch, low spin, trying to get more and more distance. The problem is balls spin less than they used to. At those lower club head speeds, you know, you can get to a point where you have just not enough spin to keep the ball in the air.
Yeah.
So this is really what it's designed for.
Okay, so this is a launch and spin. One thing we did see, we saw 139 mile an hour, 139, 139 across the board.
Yep.
GT1 saw 135.
Well, part of that's the robot test, right? So like I mentioned earlier, the robot can swing 150 miles an hour if it wants to. So when we slow the speed down, it's still going that same club head speed.
Yep.
And you're not seeing the increase and you've got less mass behind it. And basically, you know, when you transfer the head energy to the ball, it's kinetic energy. So it's half mass times velocity squared. So speed's really important.
Yep.
We don't see the gains in the robot like you would in the person.
Okay.
If a person picks up a couple miles an hour, that ball speed's going way up.
Right, exactly.
Whereas we're hitting it with a lighter hammer, basically, at the same speed. So you're going to tend to see that.
And I really want to hammer that home because this isn't a slower driver off the face. I mean, it is, but it's just not aimed at the same player. This person is not looking for just ball speed as its highest number. They cannot swing the heavier head, the GT2, as fast as they can swing the GT1, and they're going to get wash on the gains there. So what you pick up from increased launch and spin to help your ball flight, keep it in the air, carrying further at slower speeds, is going to outweigh what you might see in a potential equal club head speed, ball speed gain.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
We hope that makes sense. We go a little deep
Makes
down
sense.
here, but we dive.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed that. That's the deepest dive we've ever taken into it. We did it live. We got the results for you to help you buy the best driver. We use this data in our fittings at Coolclubs. We're transferring that data into fittings at Worldwide Golf. Stay tuned on that for 2025. Big news to come there. Stick with us. We've got plenty more clubs to test.
Yeah, we're going to go through and test these. You know, obviously we do pretty substantial testing on all this stuff. 14-point tests at multiple speeds, a lot more data, a lot more hits. It'll take us another couple months to catch up on all that stuff.
Right.
But when we're done, it'd be interesting to see, let's compare all these stuff and see apples to apples, which drivers do what. And so far, we've seen all the new drivers are all pretty damn good.
Really good.
It's
And
just a
you'll see
question
that.
of who they're for, right?
That's the point.
That driver for me, the one is not going to help me because I'll spin it too much and not a good thing. But, you know, for somebody swinging 70 miles an hour, it might gain you 10 yards. So who knows?
Yeah. Like the channel, please subscribe, tell your friends. We're trying to blow this up. Help us on our journey.